Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Scottish on the home side, half English on the away side, and both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel quite a few times before, albeit the Scottish brewery a few more times than the English one. Now, when it comes to the Scottish brewery, these guys are still a relatively new addition to the Scottish beer scene, but they are a very well established name these days. Definitely best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but they have been brewing a good few different styles as well over the last few years, and those have always been pretty damn solid. When it comes to the English brewery, they are also best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, and they have been trying quite a few different things too, although I haven't been able to try all that many of those as of yet. Hopefully in the future we can do that. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of the Scottish brewery's latest releases. It's one of their latest exports over here to Hong Kong as well, and I think it's the first collaboration I've had between these two breweries on their own. I think I've had a collaboration where there's been quite a few breweries involved, and both of these breweries were involved in that one. But yeah, definitely cool to see these guys collaborate. It's a style that I know both breweries can do very, very well, and I've heard very good things about this particular beer. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, for the home side of things, we are going to head to my motherland of Scotland. We're going to go to the west, the city of Glasgow, Yoker to be precise, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Overtone Brewing. So this particular beer is called Tumbling Dice. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this is another New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. But this one is brewed in collaboration with Deya Brewing Co, who are from Cheltenham in Gloucestershire, which is in the English southwest, I guess you could say. But yeah, another very, very good brewery, one that I've actually visited. I did an out and about video there with my good friend Harry from Blue Nose Beer Reviews, so you can check that out too. But yeah, Deya, one of the very well respected English New England hazy producers, but as I say, they're getting a bit more rounded these days and doing lots of different styles. But yeah, this is another beer that I picked up at the wonderful Craftissimo in Sheung Wan over on Hong Kong Island. They have just done a massive import of UK beers, and this is one of the ones that really kind of caught my eye out of what they had. But yeah, always nice to return to Scotland and to Overtone, so yeah, cool to have Deya on the channel for the first time in a good few months as well, actually. But let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. The Tumbling Dice New England Hazy Imperial Double IPA from Overtone in Glasgow in collaboration with Deya Brewing from Cheltenham in Gloucestershire in England. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery websites and the links to my other reviews that I've done, both from Overtone and from Deya Brewing Company. We'll no doubt add more to both lists at some point in the near future, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist and also the English playlist, and both of those are being added to whenever I get the opportunity. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to the brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about both of the breweries. We'll start with Overtone Brewing, since they are the home brewery in this case. So, Overtone Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Glasgow in Scotland, and the company was founded back in 2017 by Bo-Wei Wang, who is originally from Beijing in China. So he had been a home brewer for a number of years prior to founding the brewery, and the name Overtone is taken from his love of techno music, and that's also why you have these kind of roundel designs on pretty much all of the Overtone cans. So in the early days, Bolway hired Dan Miller to come in as his head brewer, and he's from New Hampshire in New England over in the US. But he had previously worked as a head chef, but also as a brewer in England, New York, and in Scotland as well for 6 Degrees North, who do some very nice Belgian style beers, incidentally. Do make sure you check those guys out. But also involved at the brewery is Martin Conahan, who worked in the craft beer scene down in New Zealand for quite a few years. He takes part in the brewing and does a number of other things around the company as well. And these days they've also got Charlie Irving involved in the brewing too. And he comes from a background of home brewing, and he also worked for another brewery in Glasgow as well, from what I understand. But the brewery itself can be found in the New Albion Industrial Estate in Yoker near Renfrew and Clydebank, which is where my grandparents were from, and they began their brewing operations back in 2018. So the brewery don't have a fixed range, although there are beers that come back very regularly, so yeah, if we can make of that what you will. But they're always brewing different kinds of beers as well, but they were the first brewery in Scotland to focus mostly on the New England hazy IPAs. And over the years, they've continued to expand the brewery's infrastructure, and they also have a tap room in the Dongcheng area of Beijing in China. They don't have one in Glasgow yet, from what I understand, although the brewery does open up every so often. But yeah, that would be really cool to see an Overtone bar somewhere in Glasgow. I would love to see that, but I think the economic situation at the moment maybe doesn't really allow for that. But yeah, as I say, Overtone Brewing, very, very well respected name in the Scottish beer scene these days. I discovered them a little bit before they got quite as well known as they are. They really got, their name was really well known after their beers started to make it down to England, and that's when the real kind of Overtone hype train sort of started, I would say. But yeah, I think I had maybe 2 or 3 beers from them just before that actually started. The very first one was a Rwandan coffee IPA, and that was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beer. But as of March 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just over 325 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said to you, a lot of those are New England hazies. But they do some very good West Coast IPAs, some big imperial stouts, and they have been brewing some sours and things as well, and some lagers, which are also pretty damn good actually. But yeah, that's everything I can tell you about Overtone Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on to the English side of things then. So Deya Brewing Company. So Deya Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire, and the company was founded back in 2015 by Theo Frayne, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that, but he was introduced to craft beer by his dad, who brought back some beers from the US, and he decided that he wanted to brew these kind of things for himself, and so he got some work experience at Threakston's Brewery, quite a famous English traditional brewery actually, before he went on to enrol in the Heriot Watt Brewing Programme in Edinburgh. But after this, he worked for a while at 5 Points Brewing in Hackney in London, and then he also worked for Odell's Brewery over in Colorado in the US. But he always wanted to start up his own brewery, and initially he was gypsy brewing at a few other breweries in the Cheltenham area before getting his own premises. But he later bought a brew kit from Harbour Brewing down in Cornwall, and he secured a premises which opened up in 2016. But over the years they've continually expanded their capacity, and then in 2019 they moved into a larger unit in the same industrial estate, and there they have a custom built 40 hectolitre 4-vessel brewing house, along with a 2,000 square foot tap room and a large outdoor area which opens mostly in the summer. But the original unit is now used as the barrel area for producing sour beers, and you can still go and drink beers in there as well. But the brewery itself is named after a village in Mallorca, and as of March 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 430 different beers, and the current head brewer, from what I have gathered, this might be a little bit out of date, but I don't think so, the current head brewer is Gareth Moore. But yeah, Deya Brewing these days still very, very well known for the different New England hazy IPAs. I had a very nice Italian Pils from these guys, if I remember rightly. So they do some very, very good lagers as well actually, and yeah, they do a few different styles too. I think I had one of the most recent beers I had from these guys was actually an Imperial Stout, and that was pretty interesting too. But yeah, all in all, a very, very solid brewery, Deya, but I hope I can review some more different styles from these guys going forward. But yeah, that is everything I can tell you about Deya Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys as well, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages as well to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, brewery history done. Let's get on and actually focus on the beer itself. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is very similar to what we've seen from Overtone Brewing before. It has the typical Overtone Brewing thing on the side, just like that. And then yeah, you have the Deya Brewing Company symbol on there too. But yeah, plain silver top on the can. This one is 440 millilitres. I can't remember how much I paid for this one actually. I think it might have been about 130 Hong Kong dollars, which is about £13 sterling, something like that. But yeah, an expensive import into Hong Kong, but when it's Overtone, it was kind of a case of, you know, fuck it, why not? But yeah, the hops in this one then, Citra, Centennial, Motueka, Kohatu, Nelson, Sauvin. So yeah, Citra and Centennial we know quite well. Both of those are American, of course. Citra's about 14% alpha acid. It's going to give you that lovely big kind of mango character and a bit of lemon lime in a New England IPA. Centennial, 12% alpha acid, gives you this lovely big kind of limey, zesty character. Motueka, Kohatu and Nelson Sauvin are of course from New Zealand. Nelson Sauvin, the classic New Zealand hop, 16% alpha acid, and it's going to give you that big white, green, grapey sort of character. Gooseberries is another way to think of it. Motueka, 8% alpha acid, it gives you that big, juicy, limey note. Kohatu is quite an interesting one. I think that's about 6 or 7% alpha acid if I'm not mistaken, and it gives you this kind of big piney character almost, but it's quite pineapple-y as well. I've not had Kohatu in quite a while. But yeah, this one, the Tumbling Dice, an 8% New England Hazy double IPA. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. I'm really looking forward to this, actually. So, let's do this. Curious to see what these guys actually put together when they do their collaboration. Let's get a wee bit more of that there. So I think that will do for the moment to have a little look at the aroma. And there we are. So we've poured maybe about 80% of the beer out and into the glass. So you can see the beer's poured with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say, slightly cream coloured head. The colour of this one is a very deep, rich yellow. So yeah, for me, that kind of deep, rich yellow colour it has, it's kind of like a mango juice. So I always like comparing the appearance of New England IPAs to different fruit juices, because that really is just what they remind me of. That head is fading away to just be a thinner, foamy layer. Then you've got a thicker ring around the edge of the glass there. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the edge of the glass there. It looks really nice, but yeah, I think a deep yellow mango juice colour. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the different kinds of IPAs. So yeah, haze-wise, you know, the level of haze in these beers depends on oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. The opacity of this beer, the level of haze in this one is pretty impressive. This is kind of soupy and gloopy actually. So interesting to see how that will turn out. So yeah, quite curious about this beer, I have to say. But appearance wise, there's nothing particularly surprising about this one when you consider what style it is. So I think we can leave it at that for the appearance section, and we'll go on and have a wee look at the aroma of this one and see what it's all about. As I say, very curious about this one, especially because Kohatu's in there. I've not had that in a long time. So let's have a look at the aroma then. Ooh, right. That smells really nice. So straight away, I'm going to say it's got a lovely kind of big zesty fruity character to it. The green component's got a little bit of kind of punch to it as well. But the malty base in this one thing I will say, I'm curious about the packaging date on this one. So yeah, this one has been, this is packaged around the same time as the last one. This was packaged in November 2024. So we're drinking this beer about 3 months old, which is the same as the triple IPA I reviewed a few videos ago. So yeah, These ones are not in their prime freshness, and with Overtone, when they are a month or two, when they're maybe like 2 months or so old, you start to get a slight bit more graininess out of them, and that's just the nature of the grains. We'll come to that again in a wee second. So you can smell that little bit more of a kind of grainy nature to these beers rather than them being really creamy and bready, if you like. But yeah, the aroma of this one's quite interesting for sure. So as I've often said, when it comes to New England IPAs, for me there are 6 ways these beers can, or 6 elements you should think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of these. Of course, you've got the sort of farmhousey yeasty type character and the rye lean and grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a bit more common in New England brewed New England IPAs. The style started out as a farmhouse IPA, but then as it's moved to other places and evolved, with the focus is more on kind of barley malt bread, wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, and also the sweeter side of things. For me, the Overtone beers tend to have a nice balance between the wheat, the oats, and the barley malt. There's not really too much in the way of sweetness to this one. I would also add that there's a little bit of it in there, but this one actually comes across as being a little bit wheaty leaning, but otherwise quite well balanced. I think the wheat in this one sticks out that little bit more. But let's just break down the aroma and describe it more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, lovely, fresh, white bready bread crust in there. That is absolutely your backbone. There's a little touch of like woodiness in there, as you very often get. A little bit of Jacob's cream cracker. I'm getting a little bit of like a wholemeal brown bread in this one, but not too much. As I say, the Overtone beers do tend to develop a little bit of graininess. The longer they age, basically, or the IPAs I should say, not all of the beers. But yeah, you do get a little bit of graininess out of these the older they get. But yeah, so there's a little bit of graininess in there, a little bit of wholemeal brown bread. Then you have the fluffy sort of barley malt white bread out of this one, which is quite nice. Has a little degree of sweetness to it, but on top of that, you can absolutely smell a more dense, wheaty, white bready character to this beer as well. So yeah, you've got that nice big dense wheaty white bread. There's a little bit of bitiness toward the back of the nose. So yeah, there's a little bit of that going on in this one. Nice big oaty creamy character as well. And the oats, as I've often said, oats can be a fairly decent indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is, because yeah, basically the fresher the beer is, the creamier the oats are, the drier they are, the older it is. But yeah, the oats in this one, they still have a little degree of creaminess to them, or quite a bit of creaminess to them, but you can smell a little bit of that dryness coming out as well. So yeah, I really like how that, I do really like how that goes together in this particular beer. There's a little touch of sweetness in there as well. You know, there's a wee bit of there is a little bit of Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch and a wee bit of biscuit, but really not too much, which is kind of good when you're at a double IPA level. But yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about the malty side of the beer. The yeasty side of the beer at the kind of back of the nose, it has a little bit of, you know, the yeasty side of the beer has a little bit of a more dense brown bready character to it. And it's quite sweet actually. There's a good little bit of brown, it smells like there's a little bit of brown bread, but mainly it's like a kind of sweet white bready character that comes out of this one. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together in this beer, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, I do like how that pieces together as well. Yeah, I think we've covered the malty and yeasty side of the beer then. So let's move on to the hoppy side of things. So as I've mentioned in many videos before, there are 3 ways you can hop an IPA. You can do early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil normally, gives you mostly bitterness and quite a deep, dank, oily green component. You can do late addition hopping, which takes place usually within the last half hour of the wort boil, gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and a very bright and juicy kind of green component. And you have dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that gives you pretty much all flavour and aroma, and again a very sort of bright green component. So West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3, which is why they're deeper, danker and more sort of oily. New England IPAs tend to use late addition and dry hopping for the most part, although it's not unheard of to use a wee bit of early addition hopping. But yeah, this one, the green component is very kind of soft and very kind of smooth in the sense. You also have to remember that you have, was it hop keef and Incognito in this one. So those are hop oil products, so they smoothen out the green component quite considerably. So the green component for me in this one, there's a little bit of earthiness in there. You've got some nice floral aromaticity. Yeah, so nice little bit of earthiness in there, wee bit of woodiness, some floral aromaticity. Don't get so much of the pine resin, which I was expecting from Kohatu, but yeah, there's a nice little bit of grassy zestiness in there. But let's just round off the aroma with a wee look at the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, for me, fruity side of this one is pretty much what you would expect if you know these hops. So there's a little bit of that sharper peachiness in there from the Citra, a lot of big juicy mango. It's actually got quite a little bit of citrusy zest to it as well though. I can definitely get some of the pineapple from the Kohatu as well. So yeah, peach, mango and pineapple I think on the tropical side. But yeah, at the front of the nose there is a lot of lime in this one, and Citra's going to give you some of that, and Motueka. Motueka I find very distinctive actually, to be honest with you. You can get a little bit of the Nelson Sauvin in there, but I think the lime, the Motueka lime kind of overpowers the Nelson Sauvin a little bit, which is kind of surprising in honesty. So yeah, interesting point to make about this beer actually. I really like how that kind of goes together in this one. Yeah, very, very curious about that, I have to say. Aroma wise, this one is pretty nice actually. So the fruity side of this one, quite a lot of lime, and yeah, the tropical fruit behind that, yeah, your peaches, mango, and quite a little bit of pineapple as well, to be honest. And there's only a little bit of that gooseberry, white, green, grapey sort of thing. So yeah, really interesting aroma, this one I have to say. Quite different to what I've had from Overtone before, but also a wee bit different from Deya actually. I remember Deya, the kind of slight graininess that this beer has does remind me of the other Deya IPAs I've had in recent times. I always remember they were a bit more kind of yeasty and had a little bit more crackery character to them. As I always say though, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beers before you get stuck into them, but I think it's about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Tumbling Dice, a New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, 8% ABV from Overtone in Glasgow and Deya Brewing in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire. Slàinte, skål, cheers. That's nice. Yeah. First impression, very, very smooth and quite creamy double IPA. Very drinkable as well, actually. Yeah, I find this one, to me, this drink, I think I've been drinking a few IPAs recently. I find this one just very, very light and very drinkable. But at the time of drinking this, I actually am thirsty. I probably should have drank a bit of water before doing this review, just to kind of get rid of that. But yeah, I find this one like really, really quite drinkable. But the thing is, as I've said on the channel many a time before, when it comes to import IPAs, I tend to buy the doubles and the triples because of the price in Hong Kong. It makes more sense to get the kind of bang for your buck ones. So yeah, my sort of impression of IPAs is a bit skewed these days because I am mostly drinking the heavier ones. So yeah, this one, really nice, smooth, kind of oaty leaning New England IPA, I would say. The wheat, I'm surprised at that because the aroma was definitely a bit more wheaty rather than anything else. But yeah, the green component's lovely and smooth, soft, juicy, fruity characters. And then yeah, you've got that nice big kind of malty base to this one. So yeah, interesting. So let's do as we always do then. We'll break the beer down and describe it for you a bit more in depth. We'll start on the middle third of your palate then. So the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there that we always get. There's a wee touch of woodiness further forward, and then you've got that layer of Jacob's cream cracker coming out of it. So yeah, you've got that, as I say, you've got that A little bit of cracker in there. That cracker, the kind of graininess, lingers into the aftertaste a wee bit. But then, yeah, above that, you've got a layer of like wholemeal brown bread, which it has a wee bit of sweetness to it. Yeah, it has a little bit of sweetness to it, I would say, but not overly much. And then above that, you've got a more, kind of fluffy, white bready character coming out of the beer. So for me, the fluffy white bready notes that are coming out of this, they're a little bit drier actually, but they do have a little touch of sweetness to them. So yeah, you've got the wholemeal brown bread, the fluffier white bready character from the barley malt, then you've got a more dense, then you have a more dense, you've got a more dense wheaty note coming out of this one. So yeah, the wheat in this one is actually very smooth. Normally, European wheat's a little bit more kind of bitey and things, but you can absolutely feel a very smooth, more dense, wheaty white bread coming out of this one, which I do quite like. On top of that wheaty white bready layer, you start to get the oats. So down the middle line of your palate, there's a lovely kind of, down the middle line of your palate, there's a lovely sort of oaty kind of creamy character in there. And then, there's a little bit of a more kind of dry, there's a little bit of an oaty dryness out toward the edges of the palate there. As I said earlier, this beer is about 3 months old, so you do get a little bit of that there. But yeah, oaty creaminess down the middle line of your palate, then a little bit of a drier oaty note toward the edges of your tongue. And in the dead centre of your palate, you've got a really nice little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch pushing its way out of the beer. That's the boozy side of it, of course, and then it's just surrounded by a wee bit of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit. So yeah, again, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice in this one. Yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate. Let's go to the back third of your palate then. And as I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities, of course. But so for me, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of you get that bready build up in there, the brown bready character, the barley malt white bread, and the more dense wheaty note in there. The back, or the base of that back third of your palate, you get the bready bread crust in there, which is a wee bit drier, of course, a bit more grainy, a little bit of the cracker. Then above that, you've got the wholemeal brown bready character in there, which is a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. Above that, you have the kind of fluffy white barley malt bread character. Then above that, the more dense wheaty white bready notes in there, and then it's got a little bit more bitiness to it. And above everything else, you have the yeasty side of the beer as well. So yeah, for me, the wheaty, the yeasty side of this one, at its core, it's got a more dense, slightly sweet, kind of wholemeal brown bready note to it. Then around the edge, it's got a wee bit more of a kind of, there's a little bit more of a kind of grainier white bread, and then yeah, the very edge of it, it's got a little bit more of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. So yeah, brown bread, white bread, and then a kind of more bread crusty note. I think that covers the yeasty side of things there. And definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that goes together is also quite interesting. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, and I think we've covered the malty and yeasty side of the beer quite well. Hoppy side of things, green component first. In the back corners of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. And as you move further forward, you get a little touch of a kind of woody note there. There's a wee touch, tiny touch of piney resin in there from the Kohatu, I think, too. But yeah, as you move further forward toward the front corners of your palate, it's got a little bit more floral aromaticity. Then round the front curve of the tongue, there's a little bit of grassiness there. So yeah, you've got a lovely sort of, you've got a lovely kind of smooth green component to this one. I have to say that about it. I do like how this pieces together. Yeah, ooh. This beer kind of grows on me the more I drink of it as well. But yeah, it's good stuff. On the yeah, I think the green component in this one is really very smooth and very kind of quite oily actually. And again, that's the Incognito. Is it Incognito was the first one? Yeah, Incognito and the hop keef are both going to do that. But yeah, let's focus then on the front third of your palate and the fruity side of things just to round off the flavour section. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You get the brown bread and the base, the white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bready character on top. The base of that front third of your palate is fresh white bready bread crust. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker on top of that. A little bit of the wholemeal brown bread, the fluffier white bread, then the more dense wheaty sort of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice as well. But above that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that. Fruity side of the beer for me. Yeah, fruity side of the beer for me. At the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little touch of peach on top. Then underneath that, there's a little bit of peach on top. And then above that, you've got some nice juicy mango character. You've got lots of juicy mango in there actually. And as you move further forward, from that, you have a little bit more of so a bit of peach, lots of juicy mango. As you move further forward, there's maybe a little bit of apricot, but lots of pineapple as well. So the mango is going to come from the Citra, the peach as well. The pineapple is going to come from the Kohatu. But as you move into the front half of that front third of your tongue, yeah, you get the kind of white green grapey gooseberry type note from the Nelson Sauvin, pardon me. But then above that you get the above that you get the the kind of nice juicy lime and stuff from the Motueka. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is it's really very, very nice. So that gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I do like that in this one. So yeah, lovely, nice, big, juicy, limey kind of character in this one. And yeah, underneath, into the aftertaste, you get a wee bit more of the Nelson Sauvin. But I think the Motueka actually pushes the Nelson Sauvin back quite a wee bit. And yeah, the kind of citrusy, zesty notes out of this one. The Centennial as well, I think. You can feel the sort of the lemony character. So you've got the lime of the Motueka and the lemon of the Centennial. They really push to the fore the further into the aftertaste that you go with this one. So yeah, really, really interesting. So this is a little bit more of a citrusy and slightly zesty New England IPA, particularly into the aftertaste, but I like it. I think it's really, really nice. So big thumbs up to both Deya and Overtone for this one. Let's round off this review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, it's top end and mid-bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It does have a wee bit of dryness, this one, but it does have a wee bit of a kind of creamy mouthfeel to it as well. IBU wise, I think this is a fairly standard 30 or 40, what would we say? Yeah, I think this is maybe 30 IBUs. I wouldn't be surprised if it is 40 because there is a little touch of lingering bitterness there, but it's 30 or 40 IBUs. Usually 30 is the standard for a New England hazy, but yeah, 40 IBUs. If you go to the double, you sort of balance out the sweetness a wee bit with the bitterness. But then yeah, the malt base has a wee bit of graininess to it, lovely smoothness in the middle, and then a wee bit more kind of creamy and slightly sweet character on top. Then yeah, you've got that lovely sort of juicy, fruity note to it as well. So yeah, the way that everything goes together in this one, I think, is really, really quite nice. Very, very nice beer, and it's got a bit of the slightly bigger citrusy character that this one has from the Centennial and the Motueka is a bit different compared to a lot of the other New Englands that I've had recently, but very good beer, and I wouldn't expect any less from Overtone or from Deya, to be honest with you. So this is absolutely worth trying, so give it a go and see what you think. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this was the Tumbling Dice, an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker in Glasgow in Scotland, in collaboration with Deya Brewing Company from Cheltenham in Gloucestershire in the English Southwest. So yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Overtone and from Deya as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and there'll be more reviews very, very shortly. Ciao.